So for those of you who are new to this piece today, viewing on the web, why don't we play for you the first theme, which is the one that starts, and if you're looking at your scores at home or in your office, it starts at letter A. Starts at letter A. And this theme is rather light in character, and it's rhythmic. And if you're looking at the score, you'll notice I did something which is unusual, especially notation for a middle school band, is I have a double dotted eighth note with a 32nd. Because every time I hear a dotted eighth note with a 16th, even amongst professionals, they always end up turning it into triplets. So I wanted to make sure to keep that snap, that energy in the music. So it may take explaining to people who aren't used to seeing that notation that a double dotted eighth and a 32nd is just a really snappy note at the end of the beat. And you'll hear that. But essentially, the A theme is very rhythmic and very light beginning to the piece. So this is the A theme, which goes basically from A to B. It's that simple. And then it repeats again with a larger orchestration, which is the same as Stars and Stripes Forever. And you may notice that at the very end, there are some chord progressions that aren't normal for middle school bands to hear. They may be, I wouldn't say they're advanced because they're all major and minor chords. It's just the order that you hear them in is a little bit different. But I think especially with younger musicians, they're more accepting of new sounds than people who have been around for a long time and are used to listening to what they like, and anything new tends to offend them in some sort of way. But essentially, that is the A theme, very light and very friendly. Then the B theme comes in after the A theme is played twice. And in most marches, the B theme will give the chance for the lower instruments to really show a bit more technique. And I had quite a dilemma here because a lot of times in bands, the lower instruments are considered to be not as advanced, technically speaking. And there can be several reasons for that. One of the main reasons is because lower instruments don't usually have fast notes to play, so they don't develop technique as fast as the upper instruments. And the reason why they don't have a lot of fast notes to play, part of it is because they need to provide the harmonic foundation of the music. So they need to provide pedal points and the pas, because they do it a lot better than the high instruments do. I'm a tuba player, and I really like to play fast stuff. And I think tuba players like to play fast stuff. And I can only imagine that bassoonists and bari sax players and maybe a bass clarinetist or two enjoy some 16th notes every once in a while. So in this B theme, I try to give them the opportunity to stretch a bit and play a few fast notes. I was very conscious of trombone slide position and things like that, and edited accordingly. But as you'll hear in a moment, the B theme is slightly more technically demanding than you would hear in most marches. And also the melody, the rhythm of the melody is slightly different. It's not simple 4-bar or 2-bar phrases. That doesn't mean that it's avant-garde or anything strange. I think that most of the melodies that I wrote here are quite singable. You can whistle them once you get them in your ear. So let's take a try at that. The B theme starts, for those of you at home, at Rehearsal C. Rehearsal C is played twice, once with just the lower instruments, and then later with the piccolo and glockenspiel entering in to add another aspect of color to that. So let's hear it. We'll do it 2 times for you with the repeat. This is Rehearsal C with the repeat. Good.
Everybody sing? Want us to isolate that melody?
Sure.
Okay. Just those people with that melody. Ready? Second time so we get them all. Second time, please. Ready?
Now you'll find, I think, that if you push your lower instruments and really help them to develop good technique and not use the excuse that they're playing so low that it's harder, it'll actually elevate your whole ensemble. And it'll definitely, if you're in a middle school, it'll definitely benefit the high school conductor that inherits all the musicians that you feed to them. Now, how many of you who are playing the melody just then found that music to be awkward? And be honest. Okay, yeah, quite a few of you. Now, part of that comes from the dilemma that I had about key signature and what key to place it in. I originally had this master plan of putting it into 3 different keys that all fit perfectly for a younger group. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. What I ended up with, and I challenge you at home to figure out maybe a better key, but I ended up with 4 keys. Each key is a 5th lower than the other. So those of you who are good in theory can start working this out in your head. First key is major. The second key gravitates between major and minor. And the third and fourth keys are minor. So originally, I had the opening in F major, which is fine. Of course, that modulates down a 5th to B flat major or B flat minor. B flat major is fine. B flat minor, that's quite a few flats in there. That could be tricky. Then when you go down another 5th, you end up in E flat minor, which has quite a few flats in it, especially for a middle school band, even a high school band, that's asking a bit much. Of course, a 5th lower than that is the key of A flat minor. Even as a professional, I don't think I've ever played in A flat minor. So I knew that would be a problem. And so I toyed around with different keys, and the best compromise I could come up with was raising everything 1 step. So that means that this piece begins in G major, 1 sharp, which is unusual for a lot of middle school bands. I learned playing in B flat major because that's the key that most instruments in the band are in. So that's a natural key for most players to start. And usually we go from B flat to E flat, maybe F, maybe A flat, and that's about it. So starting to add sharps will be a new thing for a lot of bands. But that is part of what makes playing, especially fast notes, somewhat awkward, because you're hitting notes like B natural and F sharp, which we aren't used to hitting. But again, if you push players to do that and push yourselves to do that, you're a better musician for it. And then the next time you have to play in a key with 1 sharp, it maybe is not as uncomfortable or not as familiar. So the third theme, the theme which handles the first new key, is in B flat major / minor. You can listen to the theme and you can tell me if you think if it sounds in major or minor. But this is essentially the trio. The trio section, or actually when I transposed it ended up in C minor, which is a lot better to deal with. The trio section is usually the lyrical section. And Stars and Stripes, we all know what the trio sounds like. It's da 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 dum. It's very lyrical tune. So with this, I wanted it to sound like children singing a lullaby or some type of children's song off in the distance, which of course it actually opens the piece, but again comes back with more ominous connotations later on. So maybe we can take a look at that and have our audience hear what that sounds like. It starts at rehearsal D, if you're looking at scores at home, and then it continues on with harmonization after that in the clarinet part. So this is the trio theme, or the third theme, or C theme, if you will, which starts at rehearsal D.
Everybody D. Set.
And there you have the trio theme. It's very easily singable. There aren't that many notes used in it, and the phrasing is very simple. But it has a lot of potential, which we'll find out later. You may recognize it from the opening measures, where it is played in the piccolo and bass clarinet. 2-inch, or at least the bass clarinet, is very rarely given soloistic opportunities. So I wanted to give the bass clarinetist a chance to express him or herself on that occasion. And now the piece with this trio is where the piece kind of pivots. It's sort of major, sort of minor, and now it becomes a little more ominous. And I've been talking a lot about the technical aspects of the music, the rhythm and the key signature, and how sometimes the phrasing is not as, let's say, square. But one of the most important things, I think, with teaching and also with writing music, especially for young players, is to give them an opportunity to be dramatic and to really find out what it means to be expressive in music. We use things like rhythm and articulation and intonation and all these other tools to be expressive. Those tools in and of themselves don't necessarily become expressive without some input from our soul. So we need to get into the right attitude